barriers. Some of the athletes that I work with that are training at high intensities, or that are very stressed out, perhaps the stress and the intensity of the workout and maybe some other things going on impact their appetite in a way that like combats against their goals. So sometimes people need to like think about that and fuel anyways, or fuel differently in order to manage kind of like what an appetite barrier is. So we'll talk about that a little bit. So as we walk through this, think about what you're learning and what your barriers are. And so you can design a system and an intervention that will address your specific barrier. Does that sound good? Okay, another thing that makes me look at this and think about it is like F45 in general. And so when I think about F45, I think about how it really like decreases a lot of barriers for people, right? Like you come here and you have knowledgeable coaches, so like the knowledge barrier is just taken care of for you. You come here and F45 is like a relatively fast and like effective workout, so like that takes the barrier away for that. Resources, it's not cost prohibitive for the people in this space, so that barrier is taken care of. In the environment, when you come in, you have everything that you need in order to do the workout that you need to do. So really, when you come for the challenge, a lot of this stuff is taken care of, which is really cool, and you probably don't look at it and think about it like that, but that's what makes it so easy to do the challenge and to come and make this like a regular part of your life. Okay, so it's noisy out there. I've acknowledged it. I saw a lot of head nods. You look inside of your phone, you're at the dinner table, you're at family Thanksgiving, like people are just talking about food all the time. Good food, bad, like good restaurants, Instagrammable, like acai bowls. They might be talking about how you can take this quiz online and then you can get like a personalized plan, or like how cool it is now that we have all these AI resources and you can just like have it ask you questions like maybe a dietitian would, and then you can answer the questions and it'll just spit out this whole like paper for you. There's a lot of cool stuff going on with like health and function. So we've got stuff here that's like, okay, we've got this cool juice option, and that will help us not only is it tasty, but it helps us with some of the functions and some of the goals that we're having, and that's a really cool thing right now. A lot of people want to eat for function and drink for function, so that's awesome. And all this stuff can just be like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do? Because like, what am I supposed to do first? What am I supposed to do second? You know, so like I try to just like quiet the noise down a little bit. Not that some of this stuff definitely has a place, but I think if you just like look at it all at one time, it can just be very overwhelming. So what I like to do is think about it as a pyramid first, and then think about the base of the pyramid, and then all the way up, and then you can kind of like check these things off for yourself so that you feel like you have organized the chaos a little bit of the nutrition advice. So on the bottom, I have adequate hydration, energy, and nutrient intake. So before we're grabbing at supplements or doing whatever else, it's like, why don't we just like check in with ourselves and make sure that we're getting enough water in the day, make sure that we're eating 3 meals, make sure that we're not going more than 4 hours without eating, and some of the things that I'm going to talk to you about, like foundational concepts, on the following slides. So no need to get caught up in anything else if you're at the base of the pyramid right now. That's something that you can focus on in the challenge. Be like, I am just going to get my nutrition foundation strong. Once you get that nutrition foundation strong, then maybe your next step is to look at any vitamin and mineral supplements that you might need if you have an actual deficiency. So hopefully, you know, you're going to the doctor at regular intervals, you're getting things tested like your vitamin D, you might be getting your iron tested, different things like that. The next step is to make sure that you are not vitamin D deficient, and many of you might be living in Chicago. So a nice thing that you could do is to go to the doctor and have the doctor test your vitamin D and then take a supplement to correct that deficiency so that you don't have any bone health or cardiovascular things or anything else going on because you have vitamin D deficiency or an iron deficiency, which can be common in elite or recreational female athletes as well. So once that's all taken care of, now we've got adequacy down, then we can move on to the next step, and we can say, okay, now I'm going to take my nutrition to the next level. I'm going to think about nutrient timing for performance, okay? Now I'm going to try to nail my pre-fuel and my refuel to make sure that I'm getting the absolute most out of this workout that I'm trying to get out of it for me and my goals. If I'm trying to gain strength, my pre-fuel and refuel is organized in a way that I can gain strength. If I'm trying to gain endurance, and we'll talk about some of this stuff, you're like, how do I do that? We'll get to it. We'll talk about that next. So nutrient timing is going to be kind of the next level. And then there might be some things additionally on top of that, like say, all right, I'm nailing my pre-fuel, I'm nailing my refuel. Now I'm going to go on to the next level and think about some evidence-based, third-party tested supplements that might improve recovery even more. You mentioned the turmeric and the black pepper and things like that. You might do something like that in a food form. You might be doing something like caffeine in an intentional way, not just in a I'm surviving my life with caffeine way. You might be doing some things like creatine. I know F45 has put out some very nice articles about how creatine could be helpful to some people in this room, and we can talk about that as we get closer to. But I think one of the ways just not to get lost in the sauce with what the heck do I do and first, let's just start at the bottom and make sure that we're building up from there. Does that sound good? Any questions so far? Okay, so first we're going to talk about that base of the pyramid, real life nutrition. I'm going to talk to you about the P's, plates, protein in plants, and please drink water. And I'm going to give you the knowledge that you need in order to do these things. And while I'm doing that, make sure you're thinking about what some of your barriers are so that you can turn some of these things into the goals that you might have for the challenge. So here are the plates. Has anyone seen these plates before? Yeah, some of you I think that do the in-body scans here get some of these plates. These are just, this is such a foundational tool for teaching people how to eat. When, I know the Olympics is like less than a week away. When athletes go to the Olympic Training Center and meet with their dietitians there, this is the first thing that they learn about is these performance plates. So you guys are like eating like Olympians now, okay? And just in time for the games. These are the plates that I consulted with Ryan about in order to adjust them to F45 so that it made sense for you. So what we're trying to do is make our plates look like this. Super easy. At F45 Sunday through Friday, we're trying to make half of our plate vegetables, a quarter whole grains, and a quarter lean meat. On our hardest days, or like Saturday in a peak phase, or maybe you're doing like F45 but you're doing something else that day, like it's a little more intense of a day for you or full, then we're going to crank the whole grains down a little bit more to make sure that we're getting some more carbohydrates for energy, and then that's what that plate will look like. So I can't overemphasize that everything on this plate has a purpose, and it is important for your health and your performance. There are some people out there that make the plates look like all vegetables, or they might make the plate look like all protein or something. And when that happens, you're losing a very critical component to your function. For example, the whole grains or the carbohydrates that are in here, carbohydrates are your energy source for high intensity work. So if I think maybe some of you have come in here on occasion and maybe not had enough carbohydrates in the morning or something like that. And when you don't have carbohydrates, what does your body need to do? Does anybody know? Do you get to like raise your hand and say like, hey, Jorge, I didn't have enough carbs this morning, I gotta go? Or do you just like grind it out? You just grind it out. So what happens like, inside of your body when you're just grinding it out is your body's like, well, I have no carbohydrates. So number one, I feel like trash. Number two, I gotta burn something else for fuel. So you have two other options. You can burn protein for fuel, which is kind of sad because you're working so hard to have this lean muscle, and then you come in and grind it out and burn the muscle as fuel. That stinks. The other option that you have is to burn fat. And everybody's like, ooh, yes, I choose that one. But what happens is when you burn fat for fuel, it's a much slower process in your body to get fat broken down into fuel like that. You burn fat for fuel, like I'm burning fat for fuel right now, you're burning fat for fuel right now. Fat is fuel for low intensity activity. When you go for a walk, you're burning fat for fuel. That's why sometimes like for the challenge, some of you might be incorporating like these exercise snacks where like you might go out on your lunch break and like walk for 20 minutes or something like that. You're burning fat for fuel when you do that. So if you're gonna burn fat for fuel in your workout, you might have a coach saying like, what is wrong with you? Like, get it going. Because you're just going slow because you didn't eat any carbs for breakfast. So it's important that we don't just cut all of these out despite some of the noise in the world, okay? There are some really nutrient-dense sources of carbohydrates that we can incorporate. And I'll talk more about some of that in our pre-fuel zone, but things like breads and cereals and oatmeals and pastas and potatoes and rice, all of these, right? Lean protein, I don't need to spend too much time on this. I think we like worship protein as a society. Lean proteins, you guys know the sources of lean proteins. they're really important for building muscle, but also people don't think about the fact that like you need protein in order to build antibodies that are important for your immune system and keeping you healthy. So what happens is sometimes when people are burning a lot of protein for fuel because they're just like cutting their calories way down or something, and they're burning protein in the workout, is they're also getting sick. So like they're like, oh, I got this cold, I'm like sick all winter long, and I don't know what the deal is. It must be the daycare germs, and it's like, no, it might be the daycare germs, but also you're burning the protein instead of using it to make muscles and antibodies and things like that. That's why it's important that the plate is balanced. Fruits and vegetables, really important sources of antioxidants. They help with inflammation in the body. It's nice to have natural anti-inflammatories in the body. It's not as nice to feel like you have to have like ibuprofen and Advil and things like that in order to decrease the inflammation and like get through your day. So I put down here, minimize distractions, eat mindfully, chew thoroughly. If you can do this, I think it will really help you feel your hunger cues, feel your fullness cues, and also like absorb your food. It seems so silly to tell people to like chew their food, but when you're at your desk and you have like one computer and then you have like the phone is over here doing something else, and then you're like over here like eating at the same time, people don't actually chew thoroughly. They're not absorbing like some of all the nutrients. It might give them like some stomach issues. And so reminder to chew thoroughly. If you finish your plate and you're still hungry, what do you do? Yeah, you could go back. You could go back for more food, and it could be balanced, right? It could be a balanced situation. So when you go back, you could try to build the same type of scenario versus going back only for vegetables or going back only for protein or going back for something else, okay? I have some notes down here about the like I'm exhausted dinner rotation, which we run sometimes at our house for sure. We are a pretty big fan of like the grilled chicken, like the frozen grilled chicken and a bag salad and maybe like some minute rice or something like that, just to make a very easy or, breakfast for dinner situation where we're doing like scrambled eggs, and if we have some, vegetables in the house, we could just throw them in there, and we could do a whole grain toast and some fruit. Like it doesn't have to be super complicated. You can do the exhausted dinner rotation and have really solid performance nutrition. So any questions on meals at all? Yes.
Just your recommendation for those of us who work out at 5:15.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not necessarily fueling before we come and work out. So what do you recommend?
Yeah, it's coming in the pre-fuel section. I have some recommendations because I am I didn't mention this, but I've been doing F45 as well for consistently for about 5 years, and I'm a 6 a.m. Person out in Evanston by closer to where I work. So I do this and we will talk about it. Sorry for the cliffhanger. But we will get there. Let's talk about snacks in general. For snacks, when you look at your snacks throughout the day, they're a really important piece of fueling your recovery. Snacks are. So you can think about snacks as essential. They help remind your body to build muscle. They help remind your body to decrease inflammation. They help remind your body that it's not starving, so there's no need to hold on to fat because I am not starving. And this is a really important role in snacks so that we are maintaining our metabolism and maintaining our basal metabolic rate and not confusing our body at all. So they also stabilize your blood sugar. Stable blood sugar helps keep your energy levels stable during the day so that you don't necessarily feel like you need to run for that additional cup of caffeine wherever it is. And also making sure that you have plants in your snacks help improve your plant intake and your plant variety. And so some really cool nutrition research, I'm gonna nerd out for like just a second. I've been talking with Ryan about it. He's like rolling his eyes already. But in the last year or so, there's been some really cool research done out in the UK, and it's basically looking at like how many different kinds of plants that people eat over the course of a week. And the research has determined that if you can eat 30 different kinds of plants over the course of a week, that you actually have significantly healthier gut microbiome, and that's really important for the way that you digest food and your immune system and your mental health and many other things. And so I am like counting my plants right now. And I am blessed to have like a really nice salad bar at work, but I've become one of those people that like just gets a few things on a big salad where I'm like, okay, 2 tomatoes and 2 peppers and the beets and the beans and the whatever, and then I take a picture and I send it to him like 14 plants. So it is like a nerd, it's like a nerdy thing, but also like nutrition is fun and like you can challenge yourself, like when you go to the Whole Foods bar or whatever it is, to like see how many like you can get in there. It's so good for your body and it's also fun. So inserting snacks between your meals is really important, especially if you're going to be having more than 4 hours between your meals. That's what, like, getting back to the point of like you want to tell your body that it is not starving, because starving bodies want to hold on to fat for the winter because they're not sure when they're going to get fed again. It's like going back to our like primate like time, you know. So we need to make sure that if you're going to go more than 4 hours without eating, that you have a snack in the middle that has protein and plants. So I have a bunch of examples up here. Greek yogurt or cottage cheese with fruit, whole grain crackers with veggies and hummus, hard-boiled eggs with fruit and vegetable. So you can read that. I don't have to read it all to you, but these are some really good opportunities here to snack, and you might think through your work day or your life day and say, oh, like that's probably a good time for a snack, but I don't have a snack. So that you have to figure out your environment. Our environment sometimes is like the glove box in our car. So we've got like meat sticks and different, see, they're already brainstorming back there, that's good. And you know, maybe some different like whole grain granola bars and the dried fruit leather and like things like that, like in the glove box, so that we can do this and our kids can do it too. So think about your environment. Is that like your desk drawer or your glove box or your kitchen or your gym bag or whatever it is? Okay. Any questions on snacks? Yes.
What about nuts? It's not on your list.
Yes, nuts are amazing. They are a great source of healthy fats. They're a great source of fiber. They're not like especially high in protein. So I would encourage you to add nuts into some of these things just because they're a great source of nutrition. But you can't always count on nuts alone to get you to that, like my goal would be to get you to at least like 10 grams of protein in the snack, but more ideally like 15 to 20 grams. And if you were gonna get that all in nuts, you would have to eat so many calories worth of nuts that it would just be kind of challenging. But yes, you should be sprinkling nuts. You should be getting nuts every day in some form because they're one of the really good sources of magnesium, and most people don't get enough magnesium. So I love nuts. Thank you for that question.
Peanut butter included?
Peanut butter included, yes! Peanut butter on a banana, peanut butter on an apple.
Not Reese's though, right?
We'll figure out how to get that into. That's important, okay? So let's go into the hydration, the hydration things. I think one of the things to think about with hydration is just making sure that you are not normalizing any signs of dehydration. So sometimes I have like my athletes do this, like, oh, like the fatigue is just part of the grind, or like, oh, my skin is dry, but it's because the dry air in the winter and things like that. So it's like, I think it's important that we recognize that thirst means you're dehydrated. If you sense thirst, you're already a little bit dehydrated. So recognize that. Make sure your environment is set up so that as soon as you feel thirsty, let's attack the dehydration. Headaches are complicated, but there is potential that your headache is linked to dehydration, but your headache could be linked to other things too. Dry mouth, early fatigue during workouts. Again, muscle cramps are complicated, but it's possible that they're a dehydration symptom. Flushing in the skin, and so I'll talk to you a little bit later in the presentation about just like the value of like really checking in with your body. I think that sometimes it's called like an embodiment movement, but it's important that you like really check in with your body. Sometimes people are relying on like watches to tell them like how they're feeling, or like different apps or quizzes or something else. It's like, no, like you know how you're feeling, so check in with yourself. And this hydration piece is a really good way that you can check in with yourself. You should be using the bathroom 6 to 8 times a day, so that could be something fun for you to track along with how many you spend. But if you're properly hydrated, you should be using the bathroom 6 to 8 times per day. If you're not, you're probably dehydrated. If you're going more than 3 hours during the day without having to pee, you are dehydrated, Okay, so I think this could be like a fun way to check in with yourself again. A lot of times people say, how much water do I need? It's highly individualized, but it's probably somewhere between 50 and 100% of your body weight in ounces. So if you're 200 pounds, you need 100 ounces of fluid in a day. If you're 150 pounds, you need 75 ounces of fluid in a day. Does that make sense? And that's kind of the minimum. If you sweat more, it could go up higher. A lot of my athletes need around 75% of their body weight in water in a day, and so could be a fun thing for you to track as part of your goals too, just how many ounces of fluid. Most of the fluid for this population should be coming from water, but you can also count things like juices and milks and protein shakes and things like that. It's all fluid, and you can count that as well, but when you look at the fluid in the day, more of it should be coming from water than other things. Okay, you can also check in with your urine color. Some of our athletes actually check in their weight too, like they'll weigh themselves, they'll do a workout, and then they'll weigh themselves after, and they are knowing that everything that they lost during that workout is water. I think sometimes people weigh themselves after and like, oh, look at all the fat I lost. It's like, that's not how that works. But they look at how much fluid they lost, and then they work to put that back in at 100 to 150% to make sure that they're ready for the next day's workout. So if you think that tool could be helpful for you, then that's something you could try as well. But those are kind of my main hydration pieces. I think when we start talking about pre-fuel, I think that's where the space is for the sports drink for this population. So I know you might want to talk about sports drinks, that's coming too. Any other questions about hydration? Okay. I'm either nailing it or you guys are like at this point here. Pre-fuel or refuel and refuel, that's what we're going to talk about next. So we're moving on from just kind of real general person nutrition. We're moving on to performance nutrition now and things that you need to think about as F45 athletes. So here are the main components of pre-fuel: carbohydrate and fluid. So we've got the 5:15 a.m. workout. That's the only thing that you need to get into your body before that 5:15 workout. So I would encourage, for some of our athletes that do the early morning workout, there might be a sports drink sitting on the side of their bed. And the minute that their feet hit the floor, they start drinking that sports drink so that by the time they get to the workout, they've gotten that like 20 ounces of sports drink down, which is 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrate, and they have that fuel in them ready to work out at an intense level. That would be a good space for a sports drink. It doesn't have to be a sports drink, but that's the easiest thing to swallow and get to any place with. So if that's what you need to do because you're currently doing nothing, then that's what you need to do. And honestly, if you're currently doing nothing, you are going to feel so much better. Your performance is going to be better. Fasted workouts, I'll just kind of skip down. This is very trendy, okay? And I'll tell you like why it's trendy is, they did all these experiments with animals and humans, having them train in fasted states. And what they realized is like on a cellular level, like inside of their mitochondria, they actually got a little bit better at burning fat as fuel. And so this was all extrapolated out and blogged and tweeted and everything else. And they're like, if you want to burn fat, you should exercise fasted. But it's only like this part of the story, because what happens is, so what if your mitochondria gets a little bit better at burning fat? The main thing is some of you might be trying to burn as many calories as you can in 45 minutes. And the reality is you burn less calories because you're going slower because you're burning fat as fuel. Okay, we don't necessarily want to burn fat as fuel. We want to burn carb as fuel. It's quick, it's efficient, it helps grow our muscles. When we burn fat as fuel, that's like a different kind of deal. You can do that while you're doing your runs. So I know there's a lot of confusion around fasted workouts. I hope did that make sense to you? Uh-oh. Okay. All right. Increases the likelihood. Also, when we undereat in the morning, it actually increases the likelihood that we're going to have cravings later on in the day and in the night. So they've done some really interesting brain studies on this, where they look at people who don't eat breakfast and they scan their brains later on in the day, and they look at people that eat a higher protein breakfast, and they scan their brains later in the day. And what happens is the people that didn't eat breakfast, in their brains, the reward centers are lighting up, saying, give me candy, give me Reese's, give me whatever it is. And it's all because we didn't eat that higher protein breakfast maybe after the 5:15 workout. So eating is very, very important early on in the day so that we're not overeating at the end of the day. So examples of quick digesting pre-fuel, I have a couple up here. Fruit cup, a banana. They've got, honey, waffles, cereal, the sports drink that I mentioned. It doesn't have to be a carb that has like a bunch of grains and seeds and, vitamins and minerals and all that kind of stuff. This is actually the time, like if you like gummy bears or like if you like, this could be the good time to actually have a little bit of candy because it's easy to digest, you like it, and you will go to the gym and you will burn it as fuel and you will have a better workout because of it. So if you're like a gummy bears fan or a fruit snacks fan or like something like that, this is a wonderful time to put that in. It's easy to digest and it's going to make your workout better. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Everybody's going to have their gummy bears. Gushers, our athletes really like Gushers. So yeah. Any questions on free fuel? Did I answer? Yes. Do you say coffee?
Yeah.
Yes. 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 It does. It does. Caffeine is a very evidence-based performance enhancer substance. So if you like your caffeine in the morning, you should have a reasonable amount of caffeine in the morning, whether that be like 8 to 16 ounces of coffee before the workout. It actually decreases your rate of perceived exertion, so that means that it doesn't feel like you're working as hard as you are. That could be, a helpful thing. So yeah, caffeine is a class A, very evidence-based. All of your Olympians are going to be using caffeine because it works. But it doesn't work in the absence of carbs, because it's just going to tell your body that you're not working as hard as you are. Then you're going to work harder, and then you're going to burn your protein as your fuel. So you got to make sure that you have some carbohydrates in with it. The thing with caffeine that you need to be careful about is you need to make sure that it's not impacting your sleep. So you got to know yourself well enough to stop the caffeine early enough, because sleep is so incredibly important for reaching your goals. It's when you're in your deepest levels of sleep that your growth hormone goes up, that your testosterone goes up, and that's when you're actually able to recover and build muscle the quickest. So you want to make sure you're not abusing caffeine to the point where it impacts your sleep and your recovery. Does that answer your question? Cool. Yes?
Adding on to caffeine, what's the window for a workout, like for the maximum effect of caffeine on your workout?
Usually like 30 to 60 minutes before the workout. So yeah, it's not going to be quite as helpful if you're chugging it and then you're drinking it during the workout. I see some people at my gym drinking it during the workout. I like iced coffee, yeah. But yes, 30 to 60 minutes before is when you can have the maximum benefits. And there's also like if you want the benefits of caffeine, but like maybe you don't like coffee or something like that. I mean, there's like sports products now. There's caffeinated gels. The Red Bull is here. Red Bull is a pretty evidence-based energy drink. A lot of people, remember Red Bull in the old days when it felt like very like taboo and like a crazy thing to do. But Red Bull now has like the Red Bull Sports Science Institute where all the X Games people train with Red Bull. It's third-party tested, NSF certified for sport. Like it's a really cool partnership that F45 has, because in my opinion, it's one of the best energy drinks out there. So that has 80 milligrams of caffeine in it, which is going to be the same as about a cup of coffee. Question?
Yeah, I heard that if you supplement caffeine with theanine, there's like another benefit to that. Is that true?
Still learning a little bit more about that, honestly. There definitely could be. Just wanting to make sure that with the way that you're getting that in the energy drink, you want to make sure that it's a third-party tested, which we'll get to in a little bit. Making sure that the amount of theanine and the amount of caffeine in the product is, tested to make sure that it's evidence-based and that kind of stuff. Because there are definitely some products that have that in it, where it's like, I don't even know how much it's in there, that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, no downsides so far. Not tested enough to know like what exactly the performance benefit is going to be. Good questions, guys. Okay, let's go to. Oh, we're not there. Okay, there we go. Refuel. Okay, so when we're done with our workout, we're thinking about a couple of components as well. We're thinking about protein, we're thinking about carbohydrates, and we're thinking about antioxidants, we're thinking about fluids. So when you look at your post-workout meal, maybe it's your breakfast or your post-workout snack, you want to make sure that it has all of these components in it because they all have a vital role. You need protein to build back those micro tears that you created when you were doing your strength work. So those building blocks to get in there and rebuild stuff so that it's stronger than it was yesterday. You need carbohydrate in order to replace some of the carbohydrate that you burned so that you have carbohydrate for the rest of your day and the energy that you need, and you have carbohydrate for tomorrow, things like that. You want to put antioxidants in, natural anti-inflammatories, because when you do deep squats or when you're doing some of these shoulder presses, like you're just naturally getting some inflammation in your shoulders and in your hips and in your knees. It's just kind of part of the process, but you can tamper that down a little bit, that inflammation, if you're getting antioxidants through fruits and vegetables. I'll give you some examples in a second. And then obviously fluid to replace the sweat that you lost. All right, so when you're looking at your post-workout snack, you need to make sure that it's checking all of those boxes. So some examples of that I put up here is like a high-protein milk. Here I put Fairlife, but there's others. So the high-protein milk is going to check a lot of the boxes for you. It's going to check protein, it's going to check carbohydrates, it's going to check fluid. All you need to do is add a fruit to the high-protein milk, and then off you go. That is a complete refuel. Another example up here, we've got some fruits, we've got some jerky, and you could add, a bar next to that, something like that. So lots of options here, or maybe you just go eat a meal. It's time for breakfast for some of you. You just make that plate that we talked about, half vegetable, half fruits maybe in the morning, and then you've got your eggs, and then you've got your whole grain toast, or you've got your whole grain cereal with fruit on top of it, and maybe you make it with a higher protein milk. That would be a nice breakfast too, okay? Any questions on refuel? Yes?
How many grams of carbs would you recommend with the grams of protein?
The research is showing about a 3-to-1 ratio of carbs to proteins. We used to say 4-to-1, and now people are kind of coming back a little bit on that. So basically, if your meal has 20 grams of protein in it, we want 60 grams of carbs.
Would you want it to be like a simple or complex carb?
It's a good question. I think a mix could be nice because your body is ready to accept simple carbohydrates, but also, the complex carbohydrates are where we're going to get a little bit more of like the fiber and the B vitamins and all the other things. So a mixture could be kind of nice.
A lot of protein bars have a lot of sugar and a lot of extra added carbs in it that it's hard to decipher which ones are actually healthy.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
I think so. I think that, if you can go a whole food approach, that would be better, but also having the protein bar is 100 times better than having nothing. So I think that the protein bars and things like that could be a really nice plan B. You're like, oh shoot, my plan was to get, get to this place between the gym and whatever, and I just didn't have time, so I got the protein bar in the glove box because that's a really nice plan B. But yeah, and I think that sometimes, we got to watch out for the protein bars that also have the sugar alcohols in them, because sometimes they can cause GI upset types of stuff too. So if it says xylitol or mannitol, sometimes the lowest sugar protein bars actually have the most of those in them, and so pros and cons to that. I don't mind, for the ratio that we talked about, a protein bar that actually has sugar in it might be a better option because you're just going to suck that into your muscles anyways, because you just burned off a bunch of carbs in your workout. So I don't think we have to be super afraid of the sugar in protein bars. For some of your stomachs and guts, it might be better just to have the sugar than to have the not sugars. Yeah?
Or amino acids, of anything to be concerned about supplementing or adding to your post-workout?
Yeah. The food option, if you're able to have a higher protein milk or a Greek yogurt or something like that in your post-workout, that's going to be a complete amino acid and have all the amino acids that you need to have in there. If you are not able to have that and you need to have some sort of you're in a rush so you need to have like a protein powder or something like that, you just want to make sure that that protein powder is going to be as close to having all the amino acids as possible. And I know that there's a lot of like buzz around leucine right now, and I'm a big leucine, like love leucine. Leucine is actually the amino acid that is kind of attributed to be like the trigger. So it goes into your muscle and it kind of tells your muscle like, hey, it's time to build, it's time to grow, it's time to repair. Leucine is actually a really great source of leucine is cottage cheese. I know that that's polarizing, cottage cheese can be, but having a cup of cottage cheese a day will get you almost all the leucine that you need in a whole day. You can also get leucine from salmon, you can get it from Greek yogurt, and you can ask ChatGPT about all of the other sources of leucine out there. But you don't necessarily need like a leucine powder, and getting it in a food form gets you a lot of other vitamins and minerals too. But I understand in a pinch, if you're traveling, you know, and you might need something like that, you'd want to make sure that it has complete amino acids in it.
Creatine for women before a workout, after a workout?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter?
Yeah, the most important thing for creatine is that you're doing it consistently every day, no matter if you're working out or not. So whatever you can attach it to that you already do every day, that's what you would want to attach your creatine to. So like I brush my teeth and I take my creatine. Or like for me, like I shower, I get into my office, I pour myself a cup of tea, I take my creatine, and I take my multivitamin, you know, like something like that. So you have to think about like how you kind of string all these things together, including creatine, so that you just do it every day. And then you'll get the benefits. We'll talk about the fact that it needs to be a third-party tested creatine monohydrate only supplement in a minute. Okay, anything else on refuel? Those are such good questions. Am I doing okay on time?
Yep.
Okay. Oh, good. I'm doing great. All right, we have time to talk about dietary supplements, which I know there was a couple questions already kind of alluding to dietary supplements already. I think we need to just like make sure that we're all level setting on the state of the dietary supplement industry, okay? It's a $300 billion industry. All you need to do in order to be part of this industry is to have a dream and to buy some raw ingredients from somewhere in the world and bring them into your kitchen and put them into pills and then label them up and market them and sell them and attest that you had good manufacturing practices, okay? There are so many research studies out there showing that this industry is like, you're not always getting what's in the bottle on the label. You might be getting something else. There could be a contaminant. There's lots of FDA letters written to the FDA and from the FDA about this industry every year. So it's very important that we just know that it's tricky and we have to be very, very diligent about what we're putting in the one and only body that we're ever going to have. Okay, we have to be very educated consumers. We can't just go in and trust that this particular drugstore or vitamin store or whatever, and even the person selling it, who may have the best of intentions, are giving us what we need. So, that being said, let's talk about when you think about a dietary supplement, 3 questions you need to ask yourself, okay? The first question, is it safe? Okay, how do you look? Yeah, well, I don't know. You should be able to, after I tell you this, look at a dietary supplement and generally know if it is safe. And the way that you can do that is to think about third-party tested labels in industry. So because the industry is so wild, there are companies that have entered in to try to make this a safer space. And so these companies, their job is to go in and test the ingredients. They take them off the shelf and they test them. They test them in batches in the company. They go through and make sure. This is very expensive for dietary supplement companies to get third-party tested, and so a lot of them don't, because they're like, the consumer, they don't care. So they just sell stuff. But we care about what we're putting in the one and only body that we're gonna get. So you can look for some of these symbols on your dietary supplements to know if they are generally safe. For your multivitamin and mineral supplements, you can look for the USP symbol. Okay, you can find this USP symbol on things like Nature Made vitamins and minerals. You can find it on Kirkland vitamins and minerals. So it is out there. You just have to kind of be an informed consumer and not buy a bottle that doesn't have that on it or one of these other ones. Okay, These informed sport and informed choice, that's another third-party testing agency that goes in and makes sure that what is in the bottle is on the label and nothing else. NSF certified for sport, same thing. Checking that's what's in the bottle is on the label, nothing else. It's very, very, very important for you, for your family, for your loved ones, for your parents, for everybody. We care about their kidneys and their livers and everything else. It's very important that they're not accidentally consuming lead. And so it's just make sure that you're not taking anything that doesn't have some of these things. There are other ones, and so if you have questions about other symbols that you see, let me know. But you will see vitamin and mineral companies that just put like good manufacturing practices in a circle with like little sparkles around it. And it's like, that doesn't mean anything at all. So please look for these symbols, and if you have a question about a symbol, then we can talk about the symbol. But not all symbols mean something. Okay, so you have determined, is it safe, right? You can see if it has the label and not. So you can do that now, all right? The next question, you guys don't have to worry about too much here, I don't think, unless some of you are going out and competing in really cool things where you get drug tested. I think they drug test the High Rocks winners now too, so like maybe you'll win High Rocks someday, and you will have to worry about legality, okay? So, but there are banned substance lists and all this kind of stuff for athletes that are drug tested. So that's the is it legal? You can skip that if it doesn't apply to you. And then this is probably the hardest dang question, is the does it work question, okay? So there's a couple of different things that I use in order to figure out does it work, but just realize like this is part of what I do for a job during my day. You know, so it is hard to kind of expect some people that have a whole different job in a whole different industry and a whole different education background to be able to figure this out themselves. But I'm going to give you a couple tools, and then if you have questions, you can just ask me. So there is a grading system for sport supplements. The Australian Institute of Sport actually looks at all the dietary supplement research and updates their class system on a fairly regular basis. So you can go to the Australian Institute of Sport website and you can see the Group A, Group B, Group C, Group D supplements. And so if something is a Class A supplement, then that means that it works, okay? And examples of Class A supplements include things like caffeine, creatine, sodium bicarbonate, beta-alanine, and a few others, okay? Like there are some things that really have great evidence behind them that are in Class A. There are some things in Class B and Class C that have like pretty good evidence behind them. Collagen, I think, is a Class C thing. So you can kind of look in here, and honestly, if it's not in any of the classes at this point, there probably just isn't enough evidence to determine if it works. And then you have to decide if you want to like be the experiment, and if you want to be the experiment, that's fine. Just make sure that it's like a third-party tested, so you know exactly what the experiment is that you are setting up for yourself. Does that sound okay? Okay. Any questions on supplements? I did that kind of quick because I wasn't sure how much time I would have. Yes.
What are your top 5 supplements that you would recommend for sports performance?
I think that I would probably start with ensuring adequacy. So I would start down here, and I would probably start with a vitamin D supplement. I think most people in this room probably need a vitamin D supplement. So a lot of head nodding, you might be already checking that box, so that's good. I think that there's a lot of people that I work with that just don't eat enough fish, period. So I think an omega-3 supplement is like going to be on my top list as well. I would pick that. You know, iron is conditional based on, but I work with a lot of female athletes and they need a little extra iron in order to make red blood cells to carry oxygen and nutrients around their body. So iron, you know, could potentially be on the list as well. I think at this point, like, it's worth putting creatine on the list. I take creatine, or Ryan uses creatine. I think we're learning about its, you know, muscle health benefits. I think we're learning about, you know, the fact that it could have some brain health benefits and some heart health benefits and some sports performance benefits and things like that. So I think I'd put that on the list. I'm trying to think about this population specifically. You know, I think there could be a role for a multivitamin if you feel like you might have some nutrient gaps in your day. Like if you're like, man, the thought of eating, you know, 5 to 9 servings of fruits and vegetables, and every serving is a fist, and like, how the heck am I gonna do that? Like maybe you're gonna get a couple servings from like juice or smoothies or something like that to get them in. But if you feel like you can't get enough fruits and vegetables in a day, it might be worth a third-party tested like insurance policy of a multivitamin and things like that. And I think about other things that people might be short on. You know, we talked about magnesium. If people aren't eating nuts every day, it might be worth a magnesium, you know, like supplement in the evening. It's definitely not going to hurt. Like a magnesium bisglycinate. It's important that it's the proper form of magnesium. Otherwise, it could be like a laxative. So you don't want that. I work with athletes that use sodium bicarbonate. I mean, I work with high-level athletes, so I just think there's a couple of things that I would recommend that maybe don't apply necessarily to this group too. Does that answer your question? Okay. Caffeine, I probably should add caffeine on there, but you can get that through food. Yeah. I think that it's worth a shot. There is not enough evidence to say that it necessarily works all the time for everyone, but there's not a lot of risk in it either. So I think that that's one of the things that I would say, you know, worth a shot. I feel like collagen, worth a shot. You know, like there's third-party tested brands, it's low risk. The evidence is a little bit mixed, but could be worth a shot. Glucosamine, you know, could be worth a shot. But the evidence is kind of here right now. Cool? Okay. All right, we're wrapping it, we're getting close. Okay, so now what? You've got all this knowledge. Hopefully you've been thinking about how it applies to you. Now it's time to think about setting the nutrition goals that you're going to have for the challenge. And so that's very exciting. As you set your goals, make sure that you really assess your barriers. And so I think that, do you have a knowledge barrier? Like, do you need more convincing that this is an important thing to do? Do you have a time barrier? Do you need to kind of plan ahead and make sure that you're putting your things exactly where they need to be so that you can just kind of roll into your good habits throughout the day? And then, you know, I just encourage you guys to kind of set up a system that you can be consistent with and kind of go win the challenge. So a reminder on what the barriers are. And then I did write down just like a couple of example goals. I think Ryan's going to have some other examples for you guys too. But one of the goals that I thought about was like if you're trying to gain strength on a particular exercise, like maybe your goal for the challenge is like I want to be able to do a pull-up by the end of the challenge or something like that. Maybe underneath your main goal of being able to do a pull-up or being able to squat X amount of weight or whatever it might be, you know, you have like a training goal underneath that. So maybe that's like you need to do some bar hangs. I'm like speaking outside of my scope, so I have no idea what I'm talking about. But maybe bar hangs would be helpful. Then maybe you're thinking about pre-fueling for that activity as well. And so maybe your second goal is like, I'm going to pre-fuel every day before I do my strength activity to make sure that I have, and I'm going to pre-fuel with gummy bears and water or whatever it's going to be. And then maybe your third goal underneath that is going to be, I'm going to refuel after every F45 workout with a high protein milk. And so those would be some things that you could put under your main goal of the strength that you're trying to gain. So that could be that. I think there might be some people in this room that have a goal of like optimizing their body composition or like losing a bit of body fat. And so underneath that main goal, maybe you have like, I want to make half of all my plates fruits and vegetables. And I'm going to keep myself accountable by taking a picture or tracking it inside of the F45 app to make sure that I have my streak prepared. Okay, maybe underneath that you also have like a hydration goal because your hydration will, you know, help contribute to optimizing your body composition. So maybe you're going to say, all right, I'm going to drink 3 water bottles a day, and I'm going to track that inside my F45 app, whatever it's going to be. And then underneath that, you know, maybe you're going to add an additional F45 day a week in order to help, you know, burn more calories, gain more fitness, things like that. So I think the cool part about this, and like I've alluded to it already, is like you got so many dang systems here to help you win. It's crazy, okay? We have some systems at Northwestern that we use. Talked about embodiment a little bit. Is just like checking in with yourself weekly. That's what we have at Northwestern. We hang these up in the locker rooms, and so people can kind of like check in with themselves and say like, you know, am I having any of these signs and symptoms? Because we're trying to get our athletes to not like normalize the grind. So like if I'm having difficulty concentrating, or things are feeling harder than they should feel, or I'm just like incredibly irritable with my teammates, you know, let's not normalize these types of things. It could mean that your brain needs a little bit more fuel. It could mean that your body needs a little bit more recovery. It could mean that you need to go see one of our sports psychologists and kind of get some more tools for your toolbox. Okay, any like digestive system, check in with your digestive system. Are you having upset stomach? Are you having changes in appetite? Are you having heartburn? Are you having constipation or diarrhea? Like not normal. Let's go ahead and like get some help with some of this stuff. And then the other thing we talk about, which might apply here even a little bit more, is Do my legs feel really heavy during training, especially towards the end of the week? Am I feeling like increased shakiness in some of my exercises that really wasn't a thing before? And I'm not even lifting any more weights. I feel like I'm a little bit weaker. I'm a little bit more fatigued. I feel like soreness is lasting like 3 or 4 days. These are not normal things, okay? So check in with your body. If some of those things are happening to you, it might mean that you need a nutrition, intervention, something to shake that up a little bit. This is another tool that we use at Northwestern. It's about relative energy deficiency in sport, and so sometimes in sport and in F45 we find that there is an unhealthy balance of energy in versus energy out. Okay, you are not getting enough energy or calories or carbohydrates in for as much as you're putting out. And this is okay if the imbalance isn't too big, and it's okay if it doesn't go on for a really long time. If we're trying to optimize body composition, some of that's gonna go on a little bit, but it can't be too big and it can't go on forever, okay? Because if it does, it leads to all of these things here: impaired bone health, reduced skeletal muscle function, sleep disturbances. It ends up causing some immune health issues, some mental health issues, and on and on and on and on. So I think sometimes during a challenge, when we get very motivated by people like me and Ryan, we might just I am just not gonna eat very much, and I am gonna work out as hard as I possibly can. And the whole thing is this is supposed to be sustainable, this is supposed to be fun, and if you feel like you have some of this stuff that's going on, it's actually gonna make you sick so you can't come to class, and it's actually gonna make you feel resentful of class or something. And so that's not good either. So if you feel like you're getting to this relative energy deficiency in sport place, and you're experiencing a lot of these signs and symptoms, it's time to rebalance your nutrition and your recovery so that we stay out of this zone, because it's not fun, it's not healthy. And there's a bunch of other things that you can do to check in with yourself here at F45. So moving on from Northwestern, you guys have these readiness things, you have the weekly check-ins that you're going to be able to do, you have some of these goal inspiration things that you're going to get to use in order to create your goals. So you have so many cool things. I just want you to know this is super cool. It's not happening at my F45. So I would encourage you to take advantage of some of this stuff that you have to check in with yourself. So I want to just close, and I'll answer whatever questions you guys want after this, but I just want to close with reminding you that the most important thing at the beginning is to nail your foundational nutrition. Start at the bottom of the pyramid. When it gets really noisy and you're not sure what in the world to do, start at the bottom of the pyramid. Make sure that you're getting your 3 meals. Make sure you're not going more than 4 hours without eating. Make sure you're making your plate look like the plate on the screen as much as you possibly can. Making sure that your snacks have plants and proteins in them, making sure that you are getting water throughout the day, up to 50% of your body weight in ounces. Once you've nailed the foundation, then level up. Performance nutrition, make sure that you're doing the timing thing and you're getting your carbohydrates before and you're getting those 4 components after. And then go ahead, and now that you have all the knowledge and the motivation, you can set up your goals, you can assess your barriers, and then you can go and win the challenge. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys. Any other questions that I can answer about anything at all? I'll say I don't know if I don't know.
Maybe some people can relate. I have a pretty busy lifestyle because I work, I go to school, and I don't find myself having time to meal prep. So I found companies like Factor or Fuel Meals. So my question is, what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's setting up your system so that you can win. So I think that if that is something that's going to work for you, I think sometimes we need to invest in ourselves in a way that makes some of this stuff easier. And so I think Factor meals could be great. Just look at the meal and make sure that it kind of has all the components. Because sometimes you might get a meal, we do some meal delivery stuff sometimes, and sometimes it's just protein and vegetables. So then we got to put some fruit on the side, or some whole grains or something like that. But yeah, I think it's excellent. I think that it's setting up your system to win. So keep it up. Yeah.
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah.
Right now, deprivation culture is a real thing where people that take on a change assume they have to stop eating brown things or drop everything they're doing.
Yeah.
Could you just briefly explain how, if I'm eating a brownie, if I go out for a 5-minute walk, the impact that has on that blood sugar regulation, how people can still do the things they love,
Oh, yeah.
but you don't have to deprive yourselves.
I am so
There's
happy.
tools that you can use in your toolbox to minimize
Yeah.
the effects of it.
Yeah, I'm so happy that you brought that up because I think that food is very much like comfort and food is very much psychological too. And you can't give the food more power than it should have. You cannot give a brownie that much power to occupy your mental space and to be like thinking about the brownie much after you eat it. You know what I mean? So it is important that we talk about the 80-20 rule at Northwestern. Like if you can nail this stuff like about 80% of the time, you're gonna have like a really nice life. You know, like you're gonna have good health, you're gonna have good performance, you're gonna have good relationships. You know, like we don't want food to like bring us in between. Like when it's Vicky's birthday, like we want to eat the cupcakes or whatever. You know, and like celebrate with Vicky. You know, like those types of things. We don't want to like create a strange situation. So yeah, so I think there is some really nice things like going out for a walk after meals can check many of your goals. It's you can do it with a friend, so like it could be social, it can help regulate your blood sugar, it can help get you some fresh air, you know, all that stuff is really good. So yes, I think that if we go too far the other way with depriving ourselves of all of these different things, there's going to be some kind of like strange bounce back, and then we're going to be having those days where it's like, oh well, I ate the brownie, so now I'm going to eat, you know, the rest of the pan, and I'm going to go out for fried chicken, and I'm going to go blah, blah, because this day is like wrecked or whatever, and it's like, whoa, that's too much for your, that's too much for your body. Okay, it's better to just have a brownie every day, and so if you need to have a brownie every day, that would be fine. Yes.
Kind of what's your opinion on alcohol intake and nutrition?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. You know, when I was coming up through school, it would be like women could have 1 drink of alcohol a day and still have, you know, pretty healthy insides and lifestyle. And men could have 2 drinks of alcohol every day. And that's what we were taught, and that's what was on my exam and things like that. And now I kind of feel like things are changing a little bit to where it's not like 1 or 2 drinks every day, but it's really like more occasionally than that. Because alcohol can definitely disrupt sleep, it can kind of disrupt metabolism and things like that. So I feel like there's some things that we can do if we want to like have alcohol socially sometimes to like balance it out. Like eat with the alcohol, because having alcohol on an empty stomach is really, really not good for you. And I think there's some things we can do about moderation. I think there's some things we can do about making sure that we just get other things that improve recovery and things like that. But yeah, I mean, I think there are some benefits to like not drinking alcohol at all, but also like it not at the risk of like social isolation and things like that. So I don't know, I kind of wrote the middle of the line for you there, but I hope that was helpful. Yes?
Just curious, your thoughts on GLP-1?
Yeah. So GLP-1s are a medication. And so I'm a dietitian, I'm not a doctor. So you can decide, you can just throw my thoughts out the window if you want to. But GLP-1s were designed for type 2 diabetics. And so I think maybe you guys know all this too. But they were designed for type 2 diabetics because after, basically we're trying to get type 2 diabetics not to have heart attacks. And so if they use this medication, it actually increases the insulin response after a meal, which gets people to suck up more carbohydrates like into their muscles. And it also makes people feel more full after the meals. And so what's happening is the GLP-1s, the medication, is kind of amplifying these things a little bit more. It is increasing the appetite suppressant so that people are just not feeling as hungry and don't eat as much food. I think for some people who are like at really high risk, this is my personal opinion, some people that are at really high risk for cardiovascular disease probably really need these things in order to be healthier than they are. So I think that there's a place for them, and I think that you can use them if it makes sense for your health risk. I think the biggest thing from a nutrition standpoint and the biggest thing from a training standpoint is you cannot use GLP-1 safely without excellent resistant exercise and excellent protein intake and timing and duration throughout the day, because there is a real risk for muscle like wasting. And really, anytime anyone does like a big weight loss, it doesn't matter if it's from GLP-1s or if it's from, you know, like a like more extreme diet or whatever, like they're gonna lose muscle. And GLP-1s is no different. You know, there's some studies out there that show that like 25% and even more of the weight loss that people are experiencing with GLP-1s is muscle. So you have to do everything you can if you're doing a GLP-1 to hang on to the muscle, and to do that with the resistance training, and to do that with the protein timing and throughout the day. Does that answer some of what you were thinking about? Yeah, I think there's a place. Yeah.
Might not necessarily.
I think there's one more point. That I need to make sure, because you can get these things through the doctor with a prescription, and you can get these things through the internet with a doctor that's not yours or a not doctor, and those medications are very different. They're not the same. So I think that what I've been reading is that if you get the medication like online through a compounded pharmacy, they're actually kind of making and concocting these things similar to the supplement industry that I talked about. And there have been some adverse things reported to the FDA of people like accidentally giving themselves 20 times the amount that they should have, or having like some really bad GI things that are coming from it. So I think that would be like my last point, is like if you are gonna like do that, do it through a doctor. Make sure that you're getting like the Ozempic, not like the Ozempic-ish, or like the Wegovy, not ish, like the actual thing, because the other things that are kind of being concocted by these compound pharmacies could cause like other detrimental health impacts. Cool?
Mhm.
Any other questions? I think I'm gonna go. Oh my gosh, I'm over. I'm like way over. Why didn't you wave to me?
You're not, you're good.
Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate